I can't believe it's week 13 already in my Cole Porter or Tune of the Week series. So this week it's I've Got You Under My Skin, which is one of Cole Porter's most famous tunes, I think, because of the Frank Sinatra version. You hear it all over the place, in commercials and movies. But you often hear it, but you don't play it that often. And we'll play it right now. It's, again, my Cole Porter Ebersol backing track here where I have removed the piano. So you know the drill. I'll play the melody. We'll play the melody together. Then I'll take a solo, then you take a solo, and then we shall see what happens.
1, 2.
So it's got like a Latin
2,
feel.
3.
melody. Alright, so there was a little vamp at the end there on the Ebersol. So like E major 7 to E flat. So I wasn't prepared for that, but maybe I should check out the backing tracks before I make the lessons. Anyway, this is a very long form, which is maybe why people shy away from it. It should be an easy tune because it's very 2-5-1 based, but because everything is pretty much the same and all of a sudden it's not the same, it makes it maybe in a way harder to come. It's easy to get lost in this tune. So it's like kind of, imagine you're driving and everything is the same, but all of a sudden it kind of deviates and goes into something else. So that there's like a defining moment there in the tune, and it's that A minor flat minor 6. Most jazz players would play a 2-5-1 to E flat, so it's F minor, F half diminished to B flat, but A flat minor 6 and F half diminished, it's the same chord, right? But I guess most people would think of that as F minor 7 flat 5. So you have to be aware of that. Some tunes have that. It's kind of the same. Imagine you're driving and then all of a sudden you're taking a turn into something else. Another tune like that is... It's like you... And all of a sudden... We have a heat wave, so guitar doesn't want to stay in tune. What I was saying, oh yeah, Black Orpheus. That means that defining note in that tune is that B flat. That takes it into a new key. The 4 chord becomes the tonic for a little while. And here, same thing, the defining note is that C flat, which means that as a soloist, you have to be aware of that in that bar, the fifth bar of the B section, that note is there. So you want to be hitting that note, right? But here's the thing. So these lessons are not for beginners. Some people are complaining about that, but I'm talking to those of you who can read a chart and understand music theory already and want to learn a little bit more. So here is my take on this. So the beginner player is not aware of that turn there. They're not aware, the beginner improviser, they're not aware that that's the important note, is that B natural or C flat. Then you learn a little bit more, and then you learn how to outline those changes, and you hit that note. But you hit it every time because you can, and you think you have to do it all the time. So the third level, and even higher level of improvisation, is being aware of that note is important, and that's the note that changes direction, the direction of the harmonic movement or whatever. But you don't have to play it. It sounds a little bit like you're trying too hard. It's like when you're trying to play the changes too much. So you want to be able to do it, but you also don't have to do it. And then there's a short 2-5 to another key to C major there. Then it goes back into the 2-5. So those G minor 7 to C7 could be minus 7-5-5, or it could be G minor C7. It doesn't really matter that much. Or it could just be C7, right? And I think I put the iReal Pro chart on there, which says only C7 because I couldn't fit in there wasn't enough room for both of the chords because there's so many chords in this tune. So but it doesn't really matter if the bass player is thinking C7 and you're thinking G minor C7. It's all the same. There's also this kind of movement. And then the same thing for the next 2-5. So it's like that chromatic leading tone, right? On the strong beat, wanting to resolve. But then you will often see in the chord symbols that it might say like E flat diminished. E flat diminished, G flat 6 maybe. C diminished. I think in the new standards read book it even says this, which is really weird. It's like a B6 over C to C6. I think it says that. So that's some advanced Barry Harris stuff, right? Like it's borrowing notes. But you don't have to think about that when you're comping. It's only for like the melody. Because if you're arranging for a big band or whatever, you have to be aware of that. You have to take that into consideration when you're voicing the everything. But so it comes from tonic diminished, right? When it's like a chromatic leading note happens all the time in music, like Mozart, right? Mozart did that all the time. But when you're copying, you don't have to consider. That's why you see some funny chord symbols sometimes when it's like that tune. You must believe in spring. It has that thing. What are some other tunes that have? Oh yeah, If I Should Lose You. You can see some really weird chord symbols in the charts because of those. What's it called? Leading notes? I can't remember what the term is. When there's a non-chord tone, like a chromatic tone on the strong beat that resolves to a chord tone. Also that melody, the triplets. that's maybe how they phrase it originally, but most people don't do the triplets like that. In letter C, they phrase it differently. The real book, the new standards real book, even tell you, or what's it called? The standards real book, different variation you can use for that. So if you want to listen to these tunes, you don't have to go back to the musicals because it sounds a little bit silly and it's like very old and they almost sing like opera like, right? It's a little bit ridiculous. So I really recommend listening to Frank Sinatra. First off, it's killer. It's so good. He's such a powerful, I don't know, like his voice and the way he sings is so elegant and it's just amazing. And he also sings the melody as they are. He doesn't deviate or change things too much. So some vocalists, you can't recognize the tune, but with Frank Sinatra is kind of famous for singing the tunes. So that's why it's good to at least listen to his, not only Cole Porter tunes, but he recorded tons of standards, but he's done a lot of Cole Porter. I think there is some famous compilation of Frank Sinatra singing Cole Porter tunes. So if you know more about these things, please let us know in the comments. Just one more thing there is that C minor is a little bit surprised. So most people, I guess, would set up that chord with a 2-5, like a D minor 7 5 to G. So it would be like this. Right, so D minor 7 5 5, G7. But I don't think that's in the original changes, but it makes sense to do that. And I think they do on the backing track that they were doing that. But in the chart I put on the screen, we're not doing that. By the way, these charts are of course on my Patreon page. You might want to think about that because if you don't use that 2-5, you just play F minor, B flat, then that's a, what do you call it, deceptive cadence. The C minor chord is a surprise first time if you do it like that. But if you play a D minor 7 flat, D minor 7 flat 5 to G7, that's a normal cadence. So then it's less of a surprise. So those are little decisions you want to make, especially if you're arranging the tune. Also, the D minor 7 flat 5, the B flat is not a good melody note for that chord, I don't think. But I mean, that's pretty. I like the diminished chord there. And then we have a to the 4. That's very common Cole Porter. I noticed, things he does. He'll do that a lot. So again, like in the early jazz world, it's more 6 chords than major sevenths. You hear that note sometimes. That major 7 sounds like it wants to resolve to the 6 sounds like it's a resting note, but the C is a stable note, but the D, the 7th, is kind of unresolved. So this whole idea of playing major 7s is a kind of a mistake in jazz teaching. Like, you should learn how to play 6 chords and think of the 6th as a chord tone before you think of the major 7 as a chord tone, and think of the major 7 almost like an extension in. Then at some point people started playing more major 7 chords and the 6th chord is outdated. I don't know how that happens, but it's just if you want to understand how to play these tunes, earlier tunes, this is not that old, it's I mean, Cole Porter, I always think he's like the 50s, I guess. He was most proactive. And I could be totally wrong about that. But another thing is, like, when the form is long like this, it's almost difficult to solo because you're running out of ideas. So I think the approach for me on a tune like this is not to play all your crazy Bob licks or your crazy Michael Brecker licks or flashy stuff, or to play like, you know, like Outside or like Wayne Shorter. I would recommend thinking like how Ed Bickert would play it, or Jim Hall. Like, just play the lyrical, play the melody, play around the melody, and put some chords in. And, you know, leave some space and wait, so you can maybe at the second half of the form, then you start to incorporate some more chromaticism and stuff. But you start off very, very subtle. I think that for me, that's the approach I would use if I were playing this tune. Because if you play all your crazy shit in the first half, then you have nothing to build on. Anyway, so that was this week's tune. I've Got You Under My Skin. Next week will be Patreon exclusive, and I think the tune is gonna be, well, yeah, we'll see. And thank you for your time and attention, and I shall see you next time.